There's a kind of peace that comes when you finally stop asking, what if it doesn't work? And start asking, what if it does? Think about it. Most of us live our lives preparing for the worst. We rehearse failure in our minds before it ever happens. We worry about what could go wrong instead of imagining what could go right. But what if we flipped that? What if you acted every single day as if life was conspiring to help you, not hurt you? When you act as if everything always works out for you, something powerful shifts. Your tone changes, your energy changes, you stop approaching life with tension and start approaching it with trust. You begin to move with purpose instead of panic. This isn't about blind optimism. It's not pretending that problems don't exist. It's about meeting every challenge with the belief that there's a way through it, and that the experience itself is part of what's working out for you, not against you. When you walk into a room believing everything will align, people feel it. Confidence isn't loud, it's calm. It's that quiet steadiness that says, I'll find a way. And when you live that way, you actually start to see paths that fear would have hidden from you. Here's the truth. Our brains follow the stories we tell them. If you act like things will fail, your mind looks for evidence to prove you right. But if you act like things will work out, you'll notice solutions you never saw before. It's not magic, it's psychology. Every great innovator, leader, and creator started from a place of uncertainty. The difference wasn't that they knew things would succeed, it was that they acted as if they would. That faith in possibility became the foundation for progress. So when life feels uncertain, remember this. You don't have to wait for proof to believe in the outcome. You create the proof through your posture, your choices, and your persistence. Act as if everything always works out for you. Not because you're naive, but because that belief allows you to show up as your most courageous, creative, and capable self. And when you do that, things usually do work out. The way we think is not just a reflection of our circumstances, it's the foundation that shapes them. Every thought carries energy, and that energy influences the way we act, speak, and respond to the world around us. Acting as if everything always works out for you begins with the recognition that reality is filtered through perception. Two people can experience the same event, yet one feels defeated while the other feels motivated. The difference lies not in the event itself, but in the mindset interpreting it. A growth-oriented mindset allows us to see the world not as a fixed series of problems, but as a field of potential. When you believe that things are working in your favor, your brain automatically searches for evidence to support that belief. This is called cognitive bias, but in this case, it works as a constructive force. You begin to notice opportunities that align with your expectations. You interpret obstacles as part of a larger process rather than as endpoints. Your attention becomes a spotlight that illuminates possibility instead of limitation. Our behaviors are always a reflection of our beliefs. When you believe success is possible, your actions carry conviction. When you assume failure is inevitable, hesitation dominates your behavior. Acting as if things will work out is not about pretending. It is about training your nervous system to remain steady in uncertainty. This steadiness improves performance, enhances creativity, and supports clearer decision-making. People who think optimistically are not delusional. They are disciplined in directing their focus toward progress rather than panic. Consider the psychology of expectation. Athletes visualize success before stepping onto the field because they understand the connection between belief and execution. Their bodies respond to the mind's rehearsal. The same principle applies in everyday life. When you visualize outcomes working in your favor, you're not just daydreaming, you're preparing your system to act with confidence. You're signaling to yourself that challenges are navigable and that effort will lead to eventual reward. This mindset also shifts the language you use. Words create internal climates. When you say, "This might not work," your mind contracts. It prepares for defense. When you say, "This will work out somehow," the mind expands, scanning for creative options. Over time, this consistent self-talk rewires your brain's default patterns. You begin to approach life with curiosity instead of caution. You ask better questions, explore more solutions, and recover faster from setbacks. Neuroscience supports this idea. The brain's reticular activating system filters information based on what we deem important. If you feed it thoughts of fear or doubt, it filters the world for confirmation of those thoughts. If you feed it beliefs of possibility, it highlights resources, people, and opportunities that align with them. Acting as if everything works out is therefore a conscious decision to program your internal system toward constructive focus. Mindset also determines emotional resilience. When you expect things to go wrong, every small disruption feels catastrophic. When you expect that things eventually work out, setbacks become tolerable. You stop personalizing failure and start seeing it as part of the learning curve. This mental flexibility is what allows people to adapt rather than break. Optimism in this context is not blind hope, it's strategic endurance. It allows you to preserve energy that would otherwise be wasted on worry. Belief influences physiology. When you feel hopeful, your body releases dopamine and endorphins that improve focus and motivation. When you expect failure, stress hormones dominate, narrowing your thinking and reducing your ability to problem solve. The body and mind work in feedback loops. One reinforces the other. Acting as if everything will work out calms the nervous system, making it easier to stay composed and effective under pressure. This mindset also transforms relationships. People are naturally drawn to those who project stability and confidence. When you carry the energy of someone who trusts the process, others begin to trust you. This creates a ripple effect. Collaborative environments thrive on belief. Teams function better when their members approach challenges with assurance instead of fear. A single person with grounded optimism can shift the collective mood of an entire group. Acting as if everything always works out does not mean everything will go smoothly. It means you navigate difficulties with the belief that even the rough paths are leading somewhere meaningful. This perspective keeps you proactive rather than reactive. It allows you to keep momentum even when results are delayed. You learn to see progress not as a straight line, but as a dynamic journey where every step, forward or backward, contributes to growth. Mindset shapes the way you interpret time as well. People who believe that things will eventually align are patient. They understand that immediate discomfort doesn't equal permanent failure. This patience reduces impulsive decision-making and fosters long-term thinking. Acting from calm conviction rather than fear-based urgency produces more sustainable success. Ultimately, the belief that everything works out for you is a framework for perception, action, and endurance. It's not an escape from reality. It's a more empowered way of engaging with it. When you carry the mindset that life is unfolding in your favor, you act differently, speak differently, and persist differently. Over time, those differences compound into tangible outcomes. The external world begins to mirror the internal one. In this sense, mindset truly shapes reality. The human instinct to control is deeply rooted in our need for safety. We plan, predict, and prepare because uncertainty feels uncomfortable. Yet, the paradox of life is that the more we try to control every variable, the more anxious and restricted we become. Acting as if everything always works out for you does not mean surrendering effort. It means releasing the illusion that control guarantees success. Confidence, not control, becomes the driving force. This shift transforms how we approach challenges, make decisions, and engage with others. Confidence over control begins with trust. Trust in your preparation, your adaptability, and in the unfolding of circumstances beyond your grasp. When you believe that things will eventually work in your favor, you act from a place of calm assurance instead of fear-driven urgency. You no longer chase every detail with clenched hands. Instead, you move with a steady rhythm that invites flow rather than friction. Control seeks to predict outcomes. Confidence focuses on influencing them through consistent, composed action. In many ways, control is rooted in insecurity. It arises from the belief that things will fall apart without your constant intervention. But confidence is built on the understanding that even if things don't go exactly as planned, you possess the ability to adapt and recover. This belief shifts your attention from perfection to progress. You stop overthinking every possibility and start trusting your ability to handle whatever arises. The outcome may still be uncertain, but your faith in yourself is not. When confidence replaces control, decision-making becomes cleaner. You no longer waste mental energy trying to foresee every possible outcome. You learn to act decisively, knowing that clarity comes through motion, not hesitation. Confidence does not eliminate doubt. It simply chooses not to be ruled by it. People who act with this mindset project an inner steadiness that inspires trust in others. Teams, families, and organizations naturally rally around those who lead with composed conviction rather than rigid control. Control often thrives in fear-based environments. When fear dominates, innovation declines and collaboration weakens. People hide mistakes, avoid risks, and focus on maintaining order rather than creating progress. Confidence, on the other hand, nurtures psychological safety. It allows people to experiment, fail, and try again without feeling diminished. In an environment of confidence, challenges become shared learning experiences instead of threats. Acting as if things will work out reinforces this climate. It replaces anxiety with assurance. Confidence also changes your relationship with timing. Those driven by control often force outcomes, trying to bend circumstances to their will. They rush processes, measure success by immediacy, and interpret delays as failure. Confidence understands that timing is an invisible collaborator. It allows for patience, trusting that what is meant to align will do so in its own time. This patience does not mean passivity, it means strategic calmness. When you trust the process, you act without desperation, and your actions carry more clarity and precision. From a psychological perspective, control operates from scarcity while confidence operates from abundance. Control says, I must hold everything tightly or it will disappear. Confidence says, there is enough time, enough opportunity, and enough capability within me. The first leads to exhaustion, the second cultivates sustainable energy. When you act as if everything works out for you, you radiate an inner certainty that allows creativity and intuition to flourish. The brain performs best when it feels safe, and confidence creates that internal safety. Consider how this dynamic plays out in leadership. A leader obsessed with control micromanages, often suffocating innovation. They operate from fear of failure, and that fear seeps into their team. But a confident leader empowers others, delegates with trust, and focuses on outcomes rather than methods. This confidence multiplies through the team, creating a culture of ownership and accountability. When everyone believes things will work out, collective resilience replaces individual anxiety. In personal life, this principle applies equally. Relationships thrive not when one partner tries to control the other, but when both operate from self-assurance. Confidence invites openness and authenticity. Control demands compliance. Acting as if everything works out teaches you to release the need to manage every interaction and instead cultivate presence. You listen more, react less, and trust that honesty and effort will guide the connection where it needs to go. Confidence also changes how we experience failure. The person who relies on control sees failure as proof of inadequacy, a signal that they lost command. The person who relies on confidence sees failure as part of the trajectory toward mastery. They interpret it as data, not defeat. This outlook allows for faster recovery and deeper learning. When you know that things ultimately align, each setback becomes an adjustment, not an ending. Control tends to focus on outcomes. Confidence focuses on growth. When you chase control, your satisfaction depends entirely on external results. When you build confidence, fulfillment comes from knowing you showed up with integrity and courage, regardless of the outcome. This internal stability becomes a source of peace. It's what allows people to stay grounded even when circumstances fluctuate. Confidence over control is not about abandoning responsibility, it's about redefining it. Your responsibility is to prepare, to act with intention, and to trust your adaptability. The rest belongs to the flow of events that no one can fully govern. When you release the burden of needing everything to happen exactly as planned, you open space for unexpected opportunities. Life begins to cooperate with you instead of resisting your grip. To act as if everything always works out for you is to live from this confident state. It is to move through uncertainty with a posture of quiet assurance, knowing that control was never the goal, alignment was. And alignment only happens when confidence replaces the need to dominate every detail. Resilience is not born in moments of ease, it is forged in the friction of challenge. Yet what determines whether a person bends or breaks under pressure is not simply their strength, it is their perspective. Acting as if everything always works out for you is a mental framework that transforms how you interpret adversity. Instead of viewing setbacks as signs of failure, you begin to perceive them as integral steps in the unfolding of success. Perspective becomes the lens that turns obstacles into teachers and delays into directions. Every event carries multiple meanings, but the one you choose defines your emotional response. Two individuals can face identical hardships and emerge with entirely different outcomes. One becomes discouraged, the other empowered. The difference lies not in circumstance, but in interpretation. When you believe that everything eventually works out, your mind reframes difficulty as progress in disguise. This reframe protects your emotional equilibrium. Instead of spiraling into frustration or self-doubt, you approach the situation with curiosity, asking what it might be preparing you for rather than why it happened to you. Resilience through perspective is built on mental flexibility. Life rarely unfolds according to plan, and those who cling rigidly to expectations suffer most when detours arise. When you act as if things are working out even in chaos, you loosen that rigidity. You give yourself permission to adapt without self-condemnation. This adaptability turns uncertainty into a tool rather than a threat. Instead of seeing unexpected changes as losses, you interpret them as redirections toward a better alignment. The story you tell yourself about difficulty determines whether it breaks you or builds you. Cognitive psychology supports this principle. Humans create meaning through narrative. We constantly interpret experiences to maintain a sense of coherence. When adversity strikes, your brain seeks an explanation. If you frame it as proof that you are unlucky or incapable, resilience weakens. If you frame it as evidence that growth is underway, your motivation endures. This internal storytelling mechanism is what makes perspective so powerful. It's not denial of difficulty, it's the intelligent use of meaning to sustain forward motion. Resilience also thrives on emotional regulation. Acting as if everything works out for you stabilizes your emotional responses because it anchors you in trust rather than panic. When faced with a setback, your immediate reaction may be stress or disappointment, but perspective allows a second, wiser response, the ability to zoom out. You start to see that a single event does not define the entire picture. That capacity to step back creates emotional space to process, to learn, and to recover without impulsive reactions. People who embody resilience through perspective develop a calm confidence in uncertainty. They learn that pain, frustration, and failure are temporary states, not permanent identities. This understanding transforms endurance from mere survival into conscious strength. When you trust that everything is unfolding for your good, endurance becomes proactive. You continue to take action not because you must, but because you believe those actions contribute to something meaningful. The belief fuels persistence even when visible results are absent. In professional environments, this mindset changes how teams handle pressure. When leaders model the belief that challenges are opportunities for innovation, teams remain composed and solution-focused. Perspective transforms collective resilience. Instead of assigning blame or fixating on mistakes, groups begin to analyze and improve. This approach converts tension into collaboration. A culture that acts as if things will work out naturally encourages experimentation and learning. The result is not just endurance but evolution. In personal life, perspective determines how you navigate loss, disappointment, or transition. Resilient people are not untouched by pain. They simply interpret it differently. They acknowledge difficulty without letting it define their identity. They understand that life's detours often bring them closer to their purpose than direct routes ever could. Acting as if everything works out helps you reinterpret pain as preparation. It gives meaning to waiting, patience to process, and gratitude for eventual outcomes that make sense only in hindsight. Resilience through perspective also influences physical well-being. Studies on stress reveal that perception determines physiological response. When you interpret stress as harmful, your body reacts with anxiety, inflammation, and fatigue. When you view stress as a challenge you can grow through, your body releases hormones that enhance focus and performance. The story your mind tells your body directly affects your health. A resilient mindset therefore becomes both psychological armor and biological advantage. Perspective is what keeps resilience from becoming rigidity. True resilience is not the refusal to fall, it is the capacity to rise differently each time. When you act as if everything always works out, you stop seeing failure as a verdict and start seeing it as feedback. Every setback becomes data, every delay a recalibration. This mindset encourages humility because you recognize that outcomes unfold through a larger sequence of events, many of which reveal their purpose only later. Resilience through perspective also nurtures gratitude. When you believe that every experience serves your development, you begin to find value even in discomfort. Gratitude becomes possible in situations that once felt unbearable. This emotional shift replenishes energy that negativity would otherwise drain. Gratitude doesn't erase pain, but it reframes it as purposeful. Over time, this practice cultivates emotional maturity, the ability to hold both challenge and optimism simultaneously. Perspective-based resilience becomes a quiet superpower. It allows you to remain steady in uncertainty, open in adversity, and hopeful in transition. It aligns your mind with growth instead of resistance. When you act as if everything always works out, resilience stops being a reaction to hardship and becomes a proactive way of living, an ongoing choice to interpret every experience as movement towards something meaningful. Human interaction and experience are deeply influenced by energy. The tone, attitude, and emotional frequency we bring into every situation. Acting as if everything always works out for you is not only a mindset, but an energetic practice. It alters the invisible signals you send into your environment. When your inner state carries calm assurance instead of anxious doubt, people, opportunities, and ideas naturally align with you. The energy you project becomes a silent invitation for solutions to emerge. Optimism, when grounded in authenticity, becomes magnetic. Energy operates like a resonance field. Every thought, emotion, and behavior emits a vibration that others subconsciously respond to. When you embody confidence and trust, you create an atmosphere of possibility. People feel safe to collaborate, contribute ideas, and share insight. But when you radiate fear or frustration, the same environment tightens, communication slows, creativity diminishes, and solutions retreat into silence. Acting as if things always work out signals openness. It tells the world that you are receptive to progress instead of resistant to change. This principle is evident in leadership, relationships, and personal growth. A leader who believes in positive outcomes inspires calm focus among their team. Their energy steadies others, especially during uncertainty. They don't have to declare their optimism. It's felt in their tone, presence, and actions. This energy attracts solutions because it creates psychological safety. People are more willing to share unconventional ideas or admit mistakes when they sense understanding rather than judgment. The same is true in personal relationships. When your energy communicates patience and belief, others respond with trust and openness. From a psychological standpoint, optimism enhances problem-solving capacity. When your brain operates under positive emotion, it broadens its perceptual field. This concept, known as the broaden and build theory, suggests that positivity expands awareness, enabling individuals to see connections and opportunities they might otherwise overlook. Conversely, negative emotions narrow focus, limiting creativity and increasing tunnel vision. Acting as if everything will work out maintains an energetic state that keeps the mind open, agile, and attuned to potential solutions. The energy of trust is especially powerful because it creates coherence between thought, emotion, and behavior. When your internal state aligns with the belief that outcomes will favor you, your actions naturally follow that rhythm. You make clearer decisions, communicate more effectively, and persist longer. This coherence becomes visible to others. People feel drawn to those who carry clarity. They sense direction without needing explicit instruction. In environments where uncertainty prevails, this calm confidence acts like a stabilizing current, attracting collaboration and creative problem solving. Energy that attracts solutions is also about emotional regulation. When you remain calm in adversity, you preserve mental resources that panic would otherwise drain. Stress scatters attention while composure focuses it. Acting as if everything always works out allows you to conserve emotional energy and redirect it toward analysis, innovation, and constructive dialogue. This emotional balance becomes contagious. Teams mirror the emotional tone of their leaders. Families mirror the emotional tone of their members. Communities mirror the collective tone of their people. A single person anchored in optimism can quietly influence an entire system. On a practical level, your energy influences communication. Words carry weight, but tone carries intention. When your tone conveys faith in eventual success, your message lands differently. You become persuasive not through force, but through presence. Listeners sense authenticity and possibility in your delivery. This magnetic quality is not about charisma. It's about alignment between belief and expression. You are no longer trying to convince others. You are embodying what you believe, and that authenticity draws engagement and cooperation. In moments of uncertainty, the energy of belief acts as a stabilizer for decision making. Instead of reacting impulsively to setbacks, you remain anchored. This steadiness creates mental clarity, allowing you to see connections and options that anxiety would obscure. Often, the best solutions arise not from frantic searching, but from calm awareness. When you act as if things will align, you maintain the internal quiet that allows intuitive insight to surface. Solutions appear not as sudden miracles, but as natural responses to focused openness. Energy also determines how others perceive your capability. People are drawn to those who seem unshaken by difficulty. They interpret composure as competence. When you carry the energy of someone who trusts the process, others subconsciously assume you can handle responsibility. This perception opens doors. Opportunities flow toward those who radiate dependability. It's not about pretending to have everything figured out. It's about demonstrating belief in your ability to find a way through. That belief becomes a beacon, guiding support and cooperation your way. In creative fields, the same dynamic applies. Inspiration is energy sensitive. Creativity thrives in expansive emotional states and withers under tension. When you approach your work with the energy of trust, ideas come more fluidly. You attract insights that feel effortless because your mental environment is free of resistance. This is why some breakthroughs happen not during intense focus, but in relaxed states, walking, meditating, or daydreaming. Acting as if everything works out maintains this receptive state, allowing creativity to flow into problem-solving naturally. From a broader view, the energy you emit shapes the quality of your environment. When optimism becomes your default energy, your surroundings begin to reflect it. Conversations become more constructive, collaborations more fluid, and daily experiences more synchronistic. This isn't mysticism, it's the result of consistent emotional alignment. You attract people who share your wavelength, situations that match your intentions, and timing that complements your readiness. Your external world begins to echo your internal certainty. Energy that attracts solutions is not about relentless positivity. It is about grounded assurance, the steady belief that solutions exist and will reveal themselves with time and clarity. This assurance replaces the chaos of overreaction with the composure of trust. When your inner energy vibrates at that frequency, you stop chasing outcomes and start aligning with them. The world begins to respond not to your demands, but to your state of being. Acting as if everything always works out becomes an energetic language that communicates faith, stability, and openness. And the universe, people, and opportunities respond accordingly.